Good evening, students. Tonight we will begin studying the way in which the trillions of cells in multicellular organisms are organized. The best place to begin is with the concept that in multicellular organisms, no cell works alone. Each cell in a multicellular organism has its own function, but it also depends on other cells in the organism to survive. Just as the many players on a soccer or football team must rely on each other to be successful, the many cells in an organism must also use teamwork and organization to be successful and to create a living organism. So, let's break down the way in which multicellular organisms are organized. First, many similar cells working together to do one job form a structure called a tissue. For example, the several muscle cells you see here in this diagram, they're grouped together so that they can work together with each other. And so we would call this a muscle tissue. Since there are several types of tissues that can be made out of collections of different cells, those different tissues can then be organized together to form structures called organs. If we look back at our example here, the structure that you see here, the heart, is an organ. Because, if we look closely at it, we can see here that it's made of muscle tissue, but it also has other tissues like the connective tissue in yellow here, and even the blood tissue running through the vessels coming into and out of the heart. And so in this circumstance, we've got multiple tissues working together to form an organ that is capable of doing a particular job, which in this case would be pumping blood. In a similar way, groups of organs can be put together and work together to perform a larger, more complex function as an organ system. And so back at our example, our heart, when put together with other organs like these blood vessels here and here and here, all of those organs working together, the heart and the blood vessels, would form the cardiovascular system. So here we've got an organ system, which is able to perform a job that is more complex than any one organ can perform on its own. And then finally, we know that an organism is composed of several different organ systems working together. So, for example, in humans, you may have heard of such organ systems as the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, the skeletal system, and the nervous system. And together, all of these systems can work to successfully accomplish all of the essential functions of life. In the forthcoming slides, we will discuss each of the levels of organization that I have mentioned here in the organizational hierarchy, and we'll look at them in detail. So, Let's start at the bottom of the organizational hierarchy, with the basic unit of organization, the cell. Now, when we first studied cells, we used generalized diagrams of plant and animal cells to learn about the various organelles. However, what I didn't tell you at that point was that not all cells look the same or have the same job. In fact, we describe the cells in your bodies with the word specialized, which means that they're designed to perform particular jobs. Because the jobs your cells are designed to do can vary widely, the cells themselves can differ greatly in size and in shape. Furthermore, the size and shape that a cell has is not chosen at random. Instead, its specific size and shape can enable it to perform its particular function. So we're going to go ahead and look at this diagram, and I'm going to give you some examples of how a cell's specific shape makes it better suited to do a particular job. Our first type of cells are neurons. You can see them in the diagram right here. They look a little bit like trees with branches projecting out of the center. Now, the reason that they're shaped like that is because their job is to transmit messages. And so by having long processes sticking out of the cells, they can easily reach other cells to communicate with them. Next, we have muscle cells. And those are shown here in this picture. And it's kind of difficult to actually see the cell. They're long, fibery shaped cells, almost like ropes. And they are shaped that way because it allows them to contract or get shorter. And that is how the muscle will, when it is attached to a bone, enable the bone to move. So the job of the muscle cell here is to create movement. Next, we have bone cells, and those are pictured here. Bone cells are specialized such that they can cluster together to create a rigid shape, which will give the skeleton a sturdy structure. Next, we have blood cells, which are pictured here, and you can see that if you look closely, they are shaped a little bit like inner tubes in that there's a little pocket or indentation in the center, and that's important because that allows the blood cell to carry oxygen. Another important cell type are epithelial cells. And those are located here in our diagram. And you'll notice that something that is special about epithelial cells is that they're stackable. And that relates to their function because epithelial cells are used to cover surfaces, inside and outside surfaces, things like your skin, and the inner lining of your digestive system would be made of epithelial cells. And the fact that they're shaped so that they're stackable allows the organ to be lined with many, many layers. We also have, and they're not shown here in this diagram, but I'll draw you some examples in class, fat cells, and they are specialized by having an extra large vacuole for storing lots of lipid molecules. I will also show you liver cells in class, which are specialized with extra amounts of smooth endoplasmic reticulum to help them with their job of getting rid of toxins. And we even have cells like our egg and sperm cells, which are specialized with special shapes and structures for transmitting hereditary information to offspring. And just to be clear, this is a short list. There are many, many more different types of cells in your body. There are over 200 different kinds of cells in your body that are each specialized to do a particular job. So this is by no means an exhaustive list. Okay, so to finish off today, I want you to recall that although we just went over an entire list of specialized cells, remember that all of the cells in a multicellular organism come from originally a single cell, which is a fertilized egg. And the first cells that are created by the initial cell divisions of this fertilized egg are unspecialized cells. In other words, they're not created or shaped for a specific role yet. These unspecialized cells are called stem cells. And the important thing about stem cells is that these cells can develop into any specialized cell later on in development. We will discuss next time this process by which cells become specialized, which is otherwise known as cell differentiation. Okay, students, that's it for tonight. Please make sure you take your Quizmodo, and I will see you next time. Good night.